The Ghost Bride. Has anyone ever encountered a ghost before? Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about my story I have experienced. Let's get started. This story happened when I was a university student, around 20 years old. I had a habit of going to bed early after coming home from school and having dinner. At around 1 in the morning, I would often wake up to read or finish any unfinished assignments. I stayed up until nearly 4 in the morning before going back to sleep. During that time, a new habit formed. I started smoking. However, my family was strongly against it and strictly forbade me from smoking inside the house. So I would take advantage of the late night hours when everyone was fast asleep to sneak in a cigarette. One night, as usual, I woke up at 1 in the morning. Since exams were approaching, I decided to stay up all night to focus on completing my assignments. That night, my younger sister unexpectedly came into my room. She was aware of my habit, but this time she seriously warned me. Before you go to sleep, make sure to turn off all the lights inside and outside the house. Double check all doors and windows to ensure they are securely locked. Don't forget. I found it odd. Why was she emphasizing this so much tonight? When I asked her why, she replied, "Recently, a ghost in a wedding dress has been appearing in this area. That ghost carries a lantern and wanders the streets, seeking out houses where the lights are still on. So you must turn off all the lights inside and outside the house." I thought my sister was just joking. She probably knew I stayed up late to study and secretly smoke, so she made up this story to scare me. I chuckled and told her, "We're too old to be scared by ghost stories. Why are you making up such ridiculous tales? Is it just because you don't want me smoking and filling the room with smoke?" But my sister remained serious. "I'm not joking with you. Just remember to turn off the lights and lock the doors before you sleep." Then she returned to her room. Not long after she left, I felt the urge for a cigarette. Unfortunately, my pack was empty. I initially decided to go without for the night, but in the end, I couldn't resist. Since there was a convenience store nearby, I decided to step out to buy a new pack. It was almost 3 a.m. Everything around me was eerily quiet. The houses on both sides of the street had their lights off. The only illumination came from the streetlights casting dim glows onto the pavement. The air gradually turned strangely cold. A chill ran through my bones. Something felt off. It was the middle of summer, and our city was in the south. It shouldn't have been this cold, especially when there was no wind. I shivered as I hurried to the convenience store, bought a pack of cigarettes, and headed home. But the bone-chilling cold remained. Not only that, but I also started to feel as if someone was watching me. Was I being followed? I scanned my surroundings but saw nothing unusual. The more I thought about my sister's story, the more terrified I became. My pace quickened. I was almost home when I suddenly noticed a shadow in the distance moving toward me. My body froze on the spot. My heartbeat pounded in my chest, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. The figure drew closer. As I looked carefully, I saw a person dressed in red ceremonial attire, wearing a translucent veil that concealed half of their face. She looked like a bride. Her hair floated unnaturally behind her, as though it passed through her body. The way she moved, it was as if she was gliding rather than walking. She was holding a lantern and slowly advancing toward me. I was certain this was the ghost bride my sister had warned me about. Under the flickering lantern light, I heard a sorrowful wail echoing through the night. But despite her mournful cries, her lips curled into a grin that stretched unnaturally from ear to ear. The closer she got, the colder the air became. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move. I tried with all my might to fight against my terror, but the only thing I could do was squeeze my eyes shut and pray. I had never been religious or believed in gods, but at that moment, I recited every deity's name I could remember from both Eastern and Western traditions. When I finally dared to open my eyes, she was standing right in front of me. The weeping had stopped. The terrifying grin had vanished. She stood still, silent. A deathly stillness filled the air. I squeezed my eyes shut again and prayed desperately. Then, in the unbearable tension of the moment, she suddenly spoke. Her voice was chilling, filled with sorrow. "Where is my husband? Where is my husband?" She repeated the question over and over. Blood began to trickle from her eyes, growing more intense with each repetition. Her voice grew louder, eventually turning into an ear-piercing scream of madness. I could do nothing but pretend I couldn't hear her and continue praying. Suddenly, Everything fell silent again. I hesitated for a moment before finally opening my eyes once more. To my immense relief, she was gone. The unbearable coldness had disappeared as well. I ran straight home, turned off every light, locked all the doors and windows, and buried myself under my blanket, shivering for the rest of the night. The next day, I went around asking about the legend of the ghost bride. The local police told me that the story had existed for a long time. There was once a woman who had loved a soldier. On their wedding day, the soldier was captured by the enemy, who massacred the entire village. The woman was the sole survivor, but she had been brutally tormented until she was barely alive. In the end, she died full of resentment. The only thing she left behind was the lantern her husband had given her. Since then, her vengeful spirit had wandered in search of her lost husband. I don't know if the story is real or not, but from that day on, I decided to quit smoking. As a medical student, I already knew how harmful smoking was, but that wasn't the real reason I quit. The truth is, I was just too scared.